The laugh came from behind me the moment I stepped into the driveway. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't surprised. It was the kind of laugh that already had an opinion attached to it. I didn't turn right away. I already knew whose it was. My Uncle Victor Hale stood near the garage with his arms crossed, grinning like he'd just won something. Beside him, my cousin Logan leaned casually against a bright red sports car that looked freshly washed, polished, and placed there on purpose. The hood reflected the afternoon sun like a mirror begging for attention. "Well," Victor said loudly, not bothering to lower his voice, "look who finally showed up." Logan glanced at his watch dramatically. "Traffic must be tough when you're still grinding, huh?" A couple of relatives nearby laughed. Not hard. Just enough to show they were on his side. I shut my car door and forced my shoulders back. My sedan was older, quiet, and parked awkwardly on the street since the driveway was already full. I could feel the comparison before a word was said, his shiny win versus my quiet arrival. "Hi," I said simply. Victor's eyes scanned me head to toe. Not in concern. In evaluation. "Still doing your little tech thing?" "It's not little," I replied. Logan smirked. "Sure it is. If it was big, we'd know about it." That one landed. It always did. I walked past them toward the house, heels clicking against the concrete, pretending I didn't hear the soft snort of laughter behind me. Inside, the place was buzzing. Music low, conversations loud, the smell of grilled food filling every corner. This was supposed to be a casual family get-together. That's what the group text had said. But with the way everyone was dressed and the way Logan's car was parked like a centerpiece, it felt more like a celebration of him. I spotted my aunt near the kitchen island. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes.
"There you are," she said.
"I was starting to think you weren't coming." "I said I would," I replied. She tilted her head. "You look busy." That was her word.
Busy.
Another way of saying tired, behind, struggling. "I am," I said. "In a good way." Before she could respond, Victor's voice carried in from the patio. "Everyone, you've got to see this car in the daylight." People drifted outside like they were being pulled by a magnet. I followed, slower, stopping near the edge of the group. Logan stood taller now, hands in his pockets, soaking it in. "Custom interior," he said. "Imported parts. Took months to get delivered." Someone whistled. Someone else asked how much it cost. Logan shrugged. "Let's just say it wasn't cheap." Victor beamed. "That's what happens when you aim high," he said, then glanced straight at me. "Some people do. Some people don't." I felt that familiar tightening in my chest. Not embarrassment anymore. Something sharper. Something tired. I didn't respond. I'd learned that silence bothered them more than arguing ever did. Logan leaned closer to Victor and said, just loud enough, "At least she's consistent." I looked up. Consistent at what? He smiled, keeping expectations low. A few people laughed again. Not everyone, but enough. I nodded slowly, like I was considering his words. "Yeah," I said. "Consistency matters." Victor chuckled. "Face it," he added, waving a hand dismissively. "Some folks are meant to shine. Others are meant to struggle. And there's no shame in that." He paused, then delivered the line like a verdict. "She's still struggling." For a second, nobody spoke. Then, from inside the house, the television volume abruptly rose, sharp, urgent, cutting through the patio noise. "Breaking news," the anchor announced. "Zenith Tech has officially been valued at $620 million. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Logan's smile faltered. Victor turned toward the open door. I didn't move. I just watched their faces change. And for the first time that night I smiled, not because I'd been insulted, but because I knew exactly what was coming next. The patio stayed frozen as the news anchor kept talking. Following today's investor briefing in New York, Zenith Tech's valuation places it among the fastest-growing private companies in the country. Victor squinted toward the open door. "Zenith Tech," he muttered. "I've heard that name." Logan frowned. "Isn't that some startup?" I folded my arms loosely, leaning back against the patio railing. My heart wasn't racing. It felt steady, calm in a way that surprised even me. Inside, the TV showed footage of a packed auditorium. Bright lights. A massive screen behind a stage. The Zenith Tech logo filled it, clean, bold, unmistakable. The anchor continued. The company's founder is expected to appear on stage any moment now to address the press. A few relatives drifted closer to the doorway, curiosity pulling them in. Someone turned the volume up more. Logan laughed under his breath. $620 million for a tech company. Must be hype. Victor nodded. These things come and go. I raised an eyebrow. Funny, I said lightly. That's not what the market thinks. Victor glanced at me, annoyed. Oh, you an expert now. I shrugged. I pay attention. On the screen, the camera cut to the audience clapping. The lights dimmed. Music swelled. A host stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, please welcome the founder and CEO of Zenith Tech. Applause exploded from the speakers. Logan leaned forward. Okay, I want to see this. Victor crossed his arms again, skeptical but hooked. I stepped closer to the doorway too, not to see better, but because I didn't want to miss a single expression on their faces. The camera panned toward the stage entrance. A silhouette appeared. Someone in the group whispered, "Here we go." The figure stepped into the light. The screen sharpened. The room went dead silent. Logan blinked once. Then twice. Wait. Victor's mouth opened slightly. No sound came out. Because there I was. Not the version they knew, the quiet one at the edge of the patio. But the one on the screen, standing tall in a tailored blazer, hair pulled back, calm and focused. The Zenith Tech logo glowed behind me like it belonged there. Like I belonged there. My aunt gasped. Is that? Logan turned slowly toward me, his face pale. That's Rory. I finished for him. On screen, I smiled at the crowd and adjusted the microphone. Thank you, the TV version of me said. This journey started small, with long nights, limited resources, and a belief that technology should actually solve real problems. Victor looked from the screen to me, then back again like his brain couldn't sync the images. That's not possible, he muttered. I met his eyes. It is. Logan shook his head. You said you were still working on things. I was, I replied, building them. On the TV, I continued speaking. People told me it wasn't practical, that it wouldn't scale, that I should be realistic. My uncle swallowed hard. The words kept landing, one after another, each one sharper than the last. Victor cleared his throat. You never said. You never asked, I said gently. On screen, the applause grew louder as I finished my sentence. Today's valuation isn't the finish line. It's proof that persistence matters. The room felt smaller now. Tighter. Like the air had shifted. Logan glanced at his sports car through the window, then back at the TV, then at me. His earlier confidence was gone, replaced by something fragile and uncertain. So, he said quietly, you're rich? I smiled just a little. I'm successful. Victor straightened, forcing a laugh that didn't sound like him at all. Well, why didn't you say something sooner? I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, because you were too busy telling me I was struggling. The TV erupted in applause again. And for the first time in my life, the silence from my family felt better than any apology ever could. The applause from the TV faded, but the silence around me didn't. No one rushed to congratulate me. No one knew how. Victor was the first to move. He cleared his throat and straightened his posture, the same way he did whenever he wanted to take control of a room. Well, he said, forcing a smile. That's impressive. I nodded once. Thank you. Logan ran a hand through his hair, pacing near the patio door. I mean, this is crazy, he said. Why didn't you tell anyone? We're family. I watched him carefully. Family doesn't usually need proof to believe in you. That stung him. I could tell. My aunt stepped closer, her voice suddenly soft. Rory, honey, you must have been under so much pressure all this time. I smiled politely. I handled it. Inside, The TV switched to commentary, analysts discussing growth charts, market impact, future expansion. My name appeared on the screen in bold letters beneath my face. Logan stared at it like it might disappear if he blinked. Victor chuckled again, too loud. Well, looks like all that struggling paid off, huh? I met his eyes. It wasn't struggling, I said. It was building. The word hung there.
People started to shift.
Conversations restarted, quieter now, more cautious. A few relatives approached me with awkward congratulations. Handshakes that felt like apologies without the words. Logan leaned against the counter, suddenly unsure of where to put himself. So, Zenith Tech, he said, trying to sound casual. What do you guys even do? I tilted my head. You never asked before.
He winced.
I'm asking now. We create infrastructure software, I replied. It helps companies scale without wasting resources. Victor nodded rapidly, like he understood every word.
Smart.
Very smart. I glanced at Logan's sports car again. Expensive things look good, I added, but they don't always last. Logan stiffened. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The TV showed a clip of me stepping off the stage, shaking hands with investors. The anchor said my name again, slow and clear. Victor exhaled. I guess we misjudged you. I didn't answer right away. I looked around at the patio lights, the half-eaten plates, the people who had laughed earlier and now avoided my eyes. You didn't misjudge me, I said finally. You just didn't bother to see me. That landed harder than any insult. My aunt wiped at the corner of her eye, emotional now that success had given her permission to be proud. We're so proud of you, she said. I nodded, accepting it without clinging to it. I'm proud of me too. Logan straightened. So what happens now, he asked. Are you moving? Buying a big place? Upgrading your car? I smiled, genuinely this time. I already moved. Quietly. And I drive what I like. He glanced at his car again, suddenly aware of how loud it was. Victor shifted his weight. You know, he said, families should stick together. Support each other. I met his gaze, calm and steady. Support goes both ways. The group fell quiet again. I reached for my purse. My phone buzzed with messages, congratulations, headlines, photos of the broadcast from people who had believed in me when this family hadn't. I turned toward the door. I should go, I said. Logan blinked. Already? Yes, I replied. I've got an early flight. Victor's eyebrows shot up. Flight? Where? Back to work, I said. We're opening 2 new offices. He nodded slowly, humbled. As I stepped toward the driveway, Logan called out, Rory. I turned. He hesitated, then said quietly, Congrats. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. I smiled. Thanks. I walked past the sports car, past the patio lights, and into the night, knowing I didn't need their approval anymore. Because the life I built didn't need permission to exist. And for the first time, that felt like freedom. The next morning, sunlight poured through the wide windows of my new place, spilling across hardwood floors I'd picked myself. The city stretched out beyond the glass, quiet, steady, real. No noise. No judgment. Just space to breathe. I stood there with a mug of coffee, phone in my hand, watching messages stack up. Headlines. Investor emails. Notes from my team already deep into planning meetings. And, buried between them, a text from Victor. Proud of you. Always knew you had it in you. I stared at it for a long second. Then I set the phone down without replying. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. Later that day, I pulled into the Zenith Tech headquarters. Clean lines, glass walls, the logo shining above the entrance. A year ago, this had been a rented floor with borrowed desks. Now it felt alive. My assistant met me at the door. They're ready for you, she said, smiling. Inside the boardroom, my team stood as I entered, not out of obligation, but respect. People who had stayed late with me, who had believed before there were numbers to prove anything. We didn't talk about valuation. We talked about impact, about the cities we were expanding into, about the people we'd hire next. This was my win. Quiet. Earned. Shared. That evening, I stopped by the community center downtown. No cameras, no announcements, just a room full of young women working on laptops, heads bent in focus. A year ago, I'd quietly funded this place after remembering how hard it was to start with nothing but an idea and doubt everywhere else. One of the girls looked up as I entered. "Are you the founder of Zenith Tech?" she asked, eyes wide. I smiled. "Yes." She hesitated. "They showed your speech in class today." I laughed softly. "Did they?" She nodded. It made me feel like maybe I could do something big too. I knelt slightly so we were eye level. "You can," I said. "And you don't have to wait for anyone's approval." Her smile stayed with me all the way home. That weekend, my family gathered again, this time for my grandmother's birthday.
Smaller.
Quieter.
Different. No sports car parked like a trophy.
Victor greeted me at the door, respectful now. Careful. Logan gave me a nod, not a smirk. Dinner passed without commentary about success or struggle. Just normal conversation. Real laughter. At one point, Victor cleared his throat. "I owe you an apology," he said, "for how I spoke to you." I looked at him, surprised by the sincerity. "I won't pretend it didn't hurt," I said. "But I've moved on." He nodded. "I can see that." And I could see it too, not in my bank account or headlines, but in how steady I felt sitting at that table. Later, as I drove home under a clear sky, my phone buzzed again. A message from my team. "Deal finalized. Great work today." I smiled. Not because I'd proven anyone wrong, but because I'd proven myself right. I had built something from the ground up while being underestimated. I had kept going when laughter was easier than belief. And I had learned that revenge didn't need sharp words or public humiliation. It just needed a life so full, so solid, that doubt had no place to sit. And that, more than anything, felt like a happy ending.
The sound of the engine sputtering to a halt sent a jolt through Claire's chest. The car lurched to a stop on the desolate stretch of country road, and for a moment, all that could be heard was the soft hum of the engine winding down and the distant call of birds. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the empty road. Claire sighed, gripping the steering wheel, frustration flooding her senses. She had been driving for hours, stuck in the endless open fields and narrow roads of the countryside. The city life seemed like a distant memory now, but what was supposed to be a quiet retreat had turned into a nightmare. The last thing she needed was to be stuck on a road that looked as though it had been abandoned for decades, with no cell service and no sign of civilization for miles. Her car had just given up on her, refusing to start no matter how many times she turned the key. Claire opened the door, the heat from the car hitting her as she stepped out. She looked around, her heart pounding. It was starting to get late, and she had no idea how long it would take to get someone to help. Her eyes darted across the landscape, hoping to see something, a house, a farm, anything. But there was nothing for miles except fields stretching out in every direction. Then she spotted it, a small barn in the distance, barely visible through the tall grass. She felt a flicker of hope. Maybe someone there could help her. She started walking towards the barn, her mind racing with possibilities. Was it a farm? Would the owner be kind enough to help a stranger stranded on the side of the road? She quickened her pace, her feet kicking up dust as she made her way toward the barn. The sky had begun to turn an ominous shade of gray, and the weight of the silence pressed in on her. She couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. The place felt off like an old forgotten world stuck in time. She hesitated for a moment before pushing open the weathered door of the barn. Inside, the barn was dark, musty, and filled with the smell of hay and old wood. The faint sound of rustling echoed around her as her eyes adjusted to the dim light. Claire stepped further into the barn, trying to shake the unease that had settled in her chest. She had expected to find a farmer or someone working, but the place seemed deserted. Yet, the barn looked well kept, too well kept for a place that seemed so remote. Her eyes scanned the interior, but there was no sign of life. She stepped back toward the entrance, ready to turn around and look for another option when a voice echoed from the far corner of the barn. Well, what have we got here?" Claire froze, her heart racing. She turned toward the voice, spotting a tall, broad-shouldered man standing near a stack of hay bales, his arms crossed over his chest. He was dressed in a worn plaid shirt and faded jeans, his boots covered in dust from working in the fields. I'm sorry to bother you," Claire stammered, trying to mask the nervousness creeping into her voice. "My car broke down on the road outside. I was hoping you might be able to help me." The man didn't respond right away. Instead, he stepped forward slowly, his eyes narrowing as he examined her. There was something about his gaze that made her feel uneasy. It wasn't exactly hostile, but it wasn't friendly either. "You've got guts, walking into a stranger's barn like this," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "Most people wouldn't come this far." I didn't have much of a choice," Claire said, her voice shaking slightly. "I'm just looking for help. My car won't start, and I can't get a signal to call anyone." The man seemed to soften a little, but the tension in his stance didn't completely dissipate. "You're lucky you found me. The nearest town's an hour's drive in the other direction. Looks like your car's a goner, then." Claire nodded, relief and anxiety warring in her chest. "I don't know what to do. I don't even know where I am. It's just me out here, and I don't want to be stranded here alone." The man studied her for a moment longer, and for a second, Claire could have sworn she saw something flicker in his eyes. Something unreadable, dangerous even. But then, just as quickly, it was gone. "All right," he said, nodding toward the far side of the barn. "I've got a phone in the house. Come on, let's get you sorted out." Claire followed the man out of the barn, her footsteps hesitant. There was something about this whole situation that didn't sit right with her, but she pushed it aside. He was offering to help, and she was grateful for that. As they made their way to the farmhouse, Claire couldn't help but notice the way the man moved. Quietly, confidently, like someone used to being alone. Someone who wasn't afraid of being left in the middle of nowhere. The farmhouse was old, but it was well maintained. The garden was neat, the windows were clean, and there was a sense of care that couldn't be ignored. But the silence of the place felt strange. There were no animals, no sign of any other people. Just the man, his presence dominating the landscape like he was the only one who mattered out here. "Who are you?" Claire asked before she could stop herself. "I mean, I know you're a farmer, but where are your family?" The man's eyes flicked over to her, and for a second, the tension in his jaw tightened. He opened the door to the farmhouse without answering her question, stepping aside to let her in. "Come inside. I'll get the phone," he said, his tone a little more guarded now. Claire stepped inside cautiously, looking around. The interior was rustic but cozy. There was a fire burning in the hearth, and the room was lit by the warm glow of old-fashioned lamps. It looked like the kind of home that had been built with years of hard work, a place that had seen its fair share of history. As the man turned toward the kitchen, Claire's eyes lingered on a large framed photo hanging on the wall. It showed a woman and two children, smiling, happy together. The family portrait looked old, but there was a sharp sadness in the eyes of the people in the photo. Claire didn't know why, but it sent a chill down her spine. The man returned with the phone, but as he handed it to her, he hesitated. "There's something I should tell you," he said, his voice quieter than before. "You're not the first person to end up here." Claire raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" The man looked at her, his face suddenly stern. "People come out here looking for help, but not everyone leaves. Some of them don't make it." A knot twisted in Claire's stomach. What was he saying? Before she could respond, the man's expression softened, and he handed her the phone. "Just a joke," he said, his tone light now. "Don't take it seriously. Go ahead and make your call. I'll be right here." Claire tried to call for help, but the phone screen flickered. Her stomach churned. Something was wrong. She looked at the man, who was now standing a few feet away, watching her with a quiet intensity. "Something's wrong," she muttered, frustration rising. "I can't get a signal." The man smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It's an old phone," he said. "Not much service out here." Claire's nerves were on edge, but she didn't want to jump to conclusions. Still, the feeling that something was very wrong began to grow. She couldn't shake the chill running down her spine. The unease she'd felt the moment she entered the barn was back, but now it was more palpable, more dangerous. Suddenly, Claire's eyes fell on a small, dusty journal on the counter beside her. It looked old, worn, and out of place. Without thinking, she reached for it. When she opened the first page, she froze. The entries were dated years ago. They described a man, someone who had helped stranded travelers, someone who had taken them in, made them comfortable, and then, without fail, they were never heard from again. The last entry was chilling. Another one is here, just like the others. They'll never leave. Claire's blood ran cold. She looked up at the man, who was still standing there, watching her closely. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice shaking. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, his smile deepened. "You don't know, do you?" A chill ran through Claire as she backed away, the journal still in her hands. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but it was too late. The door slammed shut behind her. Claire's mind raced as she stared at the man. No, the monster, who had been hiding behind the facade of kindness. Her hands trembled as she clutched the journal in her grasp. The words, so innocently written at first, now felt like a death sentence. "Another one is here, just like the others. They'll never leave." Her breath caught in her throat as the realization hit her hard. The man took a step forward, his smile never fading. "You should have listened when I told you to go inside," he said softly, almost as if talking to a child who had misbehaved. "But it's too late now. You've seen too much." Claire's heart pounded in her chest. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to get out of there, but her feet were frozen to the floor. The door slammed shut behind her, the sound echoing through the quiet farmhouse. The silence that followed was suffocating. Her gaze darted around the room, searching for any means of escape, but the windows were sealed tight, and the only way out was through the man blocking her path. "Why are you doing this?" Claire whispered, her voice barely audible. "Why?" The man's expression softened just a fraction, as if he was considering her question, but then his smile returned, cold, unfeeling. "It's not about what I want. It's about what has to be done. There are rules, you see, and once you've come this far, you're a part of this place now. It's just how it works." Claire's stomach twisted in fear. The journal's words, "They'll never leave," haunted her. She wasn't going to be the next one to disappear. She couldn't let herself become just another forgotten soul in this forsaken place. But how could she fight against a man who seemed to have control over everything here? How could she escape when every path led to him? You're insane." Claire spat, her fear boiling into anger. "You think you could just trap people here? I won't let you." The man's gaze sharpened, and his smile twisted into something darker. "You don't have a choice. The only way out is death, or becoming one of us." The words hit Claire like a punch to the gut. Becoming one of us. She knew then that the man wasn't just talking about letting her go. He was talking about turning her into something else. Something twisted, something wrong. She had seen the way he looked at her, the way he had studied her when she first entered his barn. It wasn't just curiosity. He had been sizing her up, deciding her fate. Claire felt her throat tighten. "I won't be like the others. I won't stay here with you." Without thinking, she hurled the journal at him, the weight of her fear and fury making her act on pure instinct. But the man simply stepped back, his expression unchanged as the journal flew past him. He wasn't fazed by her outburst. He had long since stopped seeing people like Claire as anything more than pawns in a twisted game. "Why fight it, Claire?" he said softly, stepping closer to her. "You've seen how it goes. You're going to stay here. You'll live here for as long as you can stand it. And when you break, I'll turn you. It's inevitable. Everyone does." Her breath was ragged now, her chest rising and falling in panic. She wanted to scream, to fight, but what could she do against someone who had the power to control this place, this nightmare? "Let me go," she begged, her voice cracking with desperation. "Please, I don't want to be here. Just let me leave." The man shook his head slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. "It's already too late for that. You should have stayed away. But now, you're just like the others, lost in the dark." Suddenly, a flash of movement caught Claire's eye. She whipped her head toward the window, her heart leaping in her chest. A car. For the briefest moment, she saw headlights in the distance, just a glimmer of hope, a lifeline. Someone else was out there. Someone else who could help her. Claire's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't wait another moment. She had to act, and she had to act fast. Without another word, Claire bolted toward the back door. She knew it was risky, but she had to try. She had seen the man's twisted obsession, and she wasn't about to let him make her another casualty in his cruel game. She yanked at the door, her hands shaking as she tried to push it open. It was stuck. No, no, no. She pulled harder, using every ounce of strength left in her. She wasn't going to let him take her without a fight. The door creaked open just enough for her to squeeze through, and she pushed her way out into the night air, gasping for breath. Her legs were shaky, but the sight of the headlights, so close now, gave her the energy to run. She sprinted toward the car, hearing footsteps behind her, loud, fast. The man was coming after her. "Help! Help!" Claire screamed, her voice raw with fear and desperation. The car was just a few feet away now. The headlights illuminated the gravel road, and she saw the driver, just a shadow in the driver's seat. The man behind her laughed a low, mocking sound. "It's too late, Claire. They won't help you." But Claire didn't stop. She was almost there. The car door opened, and Claire hurled herself inside, slamming it shut just as the man reached her. "Drive!" she screamed at the driver. The man's face twisted with rage as he pounded on the window. But the driver, a stranger with a look of confusion and concern, didn't hesitate. He slammed his foot on the gas, and they sped off, leaving the farmhouse and the man behind. Claire collapsed back in the seat, her chest heaving with exhaustion. She looked back, half expecting to see the man chasing them. But there was nothing but the empty road stretching out behind them. "I don't know who you are," the driver said, glancing over at her with a look of disbelief. "But you were running from something serious. Are you all right?" Claire looked out the window, her mind racing. She didn't know how to explain what had just happened, what she had just escaped. The fear, the terror, the darkness that had been closing in on her. It was all still fresh in her mind. But for the first time in hours, she felt safe. She was free. I don't know," she whispered, her voice shaky. "But I don't think I'll ever be the same." The car sped down the road, leaving the farmhouse behind. Claire's breathing began to slow, and her body, still trembling, started to relax. She glanced over at the driver, who was looking at her with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "What happened back there?" he asked. "Who was that guy?" Claire swallowed hard, trying to collect herself. "I don't know his name," she said, her voice shaky. "But he's been trapping people out there. He's not just some ordinary farmer. He's something else. He's been taking people in, and they never leave. He tried to do the same to me. I think I was just another victim." The driver looked at her in disbelief, his eyes widening. "That's crazy. You're lucky you got away. People don't come back from those kinds of places. Not without something changing them." "I don't know what he wanted," Claire said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm not going back there. Not ever. Not if it means becoming like the others. I won't let him do that to me." The car continued down the road, Claire's mind still spinning with everything that had happened. It felt like a nightmare, one she had barely escaped. But as she looked at the man in the driver's seat, she realized something. She had survived, and no matter what came next, she would never let herself become another lost soul in that forsaken place.
I didn't expect my life to change in a single evening. But the moment I stepped into that boardroom, everything I had ever known shattered into pieces. My father sat at the head of the table, cold and calculating as always. My mother stood beside him, arms crossed, her expression smug. And then there was my brother, Adam, the family's golden boy, lounging in his chair like he had already won whatever twisted game they were playing. "Sit," my father ordered. Something felt off. I could feel it in my bones. But I sat down. The folder was slid across the table towards me. I frowned, flipping it open. My heart stopped. I was staring at a legal document, a transfer of all my inheritance, my trust fund, my shares in the company, everything that belonged to me. And it was all going to Adam. What the hell is this? My voice was sharp, but inside, my stomach twisted. Adam smirked. "That, dear sister, is your exit plan?" I looked up at my parents, hoping, praying, that this was some cruel joke. But my father's expression was cold as steel. My mother sighed, as if I were an inconvenience she wished would just disappear. "It's what's best," my father said. "For the family." "For the family? What about me? You expect me to sign this?" I scoffed, pushing the papers away. "Are you insane?" My mother stepped forward. "You were never meant to lead, Anna. You're just not capable." Capable? I had been running operations of the company since I was 21. I had worked twice as hard as Adam, proving myself every step of the way. I clenched my fists. This is a joke. I built my reputation in this company. Adam cut me off with a laugh. "You mean our reputation? Everything you did was because of Dad's name." I felt something crack inside me. All my life, I had fought to prove I wasn't just the daughter of a powerful businessman. I had fought to prove that I deserved my place at the top. And now they were ripping it all away. My father slid a pen across the table. "Sign?" "No." His expression darkened. "You don't have a choice." And that was when I realized they had already won. I didn't sign right away. I fought. I screamed. I threatened. I even begged. But my father? He had already pulled all the strings. Bank accounts? Frozen. Credit cards?
Declined.
My personal assets?
Seized.
In a single night, I went from being the heir to a billion-dollar empire to having nothing. Not even a place to stay. And the worst part? No one cared. Not my so-called friends. Not the people I had helped. Not even the company's employees I had fought for. I was a nobody. My father's last words to me before I walked out of the mansion still echoed in my head. "You were never meant to be more than a placeholder, Anna. Now get out." For weeks, I drifted. I found a cheap motel that smelled like mold, using the last bit of cash I had to keep a roof over my head. I applied for jobs. No one would hire me. My father had made sure of that. Everywhere I went, I hit a dead end. My name, the name that once meant everything, was now a curse. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering, was this it? Was this how my story ended? And then, one night, I looked at myself in the mirror. The girl staring back at me wasn't the same. She was broken, defeated. I gritted my teeth.
No.
I wasn't going to let them win. If they thought I was going to fade away quietly, they were wrong. Very, very wrong. I had nothing. But if there was one thing I still had, it was my mind. My family had underestimated me. They thought I had no power without them. But what they didn't realize was, I was smarter than all of them. With the little money I had left, I started working my way up from scratch. I took night shifts at a local cafe, using every spare second to learn everything about the business world. I studied corporate takeovers, financial loopholes, stock manipulation, everything they had used to keep me down. And after months of working like hell, I finally had my first breakthrough. A new opportunity. A way back into the game. And the best part? They wouldn't see me coming. Months passed and I barely survived. Every dollar was stretched. Every meal was a calculation. But I never stopped learning. One night, while working the late shift at the cafe, I overheard two businessmen talking about a struggling tech startup. I had nothing to lose. So I took a risk. Using the last bit of cash I had, I bought shares in the startup. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I spent nights researching, days networking, doing everything I could to turn that tiny investment into something bigger. And one day, it happened. The startup exploded in value. Overnight, I went from broke and desperate to having enough to start something of my own. It wasn't revenge yet, but it was the first step. With my first real money, I knew I had one chance. One chance to build something powerful. I started small, a consulting firm, using the knowledge I had gained from years in my father's company. At first, no one took me seriously, until they saw what I could do. I tripled profits for small businesses, helped companies recover from financial disasters, and within a year, my name was back. But this time, it was mine, not my father's. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was gaining power. And once I had enough, I was going to destroy them. By the second year, my company had become one of the most sought-after firms in the city. People who had once turned their backs on me, now they begged to work with me. Investors poured in. I expanded, moved into high-stakes corporate takeovers, and learned how to dismantle empires from the inside out. And as fate would have it, my father's company was struggling. The golden boy, Adam, was failing. And that's when I saw my opening. It was time to strike. It started with small, quiet moves. I bought shares in my father's company through shell corporations, making sure they had no idea who was behind it. Piece by piece, I gained control. And then, one day, I owned a majority of the company. My father? He had no idea. Adam? Clueless. They thought they were still untouchable. Until the board called for a vote of no confidence. And the new CEO was announced.
Me.
The day I walked into the boardroom, everything stopped. My father's face went pale. My mother clutched Adam's arm, her breath caught in her throat. And Adam? He looked at me like he had seen a ghost. This isn't possible, he stammered. I smiled. Oh, but it is. For the first time in my life, I had all the power. And they had none. I sat at the head of the table where my father once ruled. He sat across from me, his hands trembling. You can't do this, he whispered. I leaned forward. I already did. Every ounce of betrayal, pain, and suffering they had put me through, it was finally their turn to feel it. And I was just getting started. Silence filled the boardroom. For the first time in my life, they had no control over me. My father gripped the table so hard his knuckles turned white. You don't understand what you've done. I tilted my head. Oh, I understand perfectly. Adam's arrogance shattered in an instant. The once smug brother, who had laughed as he stole everything from me, now he looked like a child who had just realized the monsters under his bed were real. My mother?
She didn't speak.
Her face was twisted in shock, as if she couldn't comprehend that the daughter they had discarded had returned more powerful than they ever imagined. I leaned back in my chair, looking at their stunned faces. This moment, this was everything. But I wasn't done yet. My father's company, now mine, was drowning in debt, thanks to Adam's terrible leadership. I had two choices. Save it and let them crawl back to their comfortable lives. Tear it down piece by piece and leave them with nothing. Guess which one I chose? I announced an internal restructuring, one that included firing Adam. You can't do this. Adam exploded, slamming his fists on the table. I stared at him. You did it to me. His lips parted, but no words came out. Now he understood. I didn't just fire Adam. I made sure everyone knew about it. The media ate it up. Billionaire heiress Anna takes over, fires brother, who betrayed her. Fall of a golden boy, Adam gets kicked out of his own companies. The same way they humiliated me years ago, I returned the favor. And my father? He tried to hold on, tried to fight back. But he was old news now. No one respected him anymore. Because I was the one in power. One by one, I took everything from them. Their business?
Gone.
Their fortune? Vanishing fast. Their power? Stripped away. They had spent their lives belittling me, underestimating me, throwing me away like I was nothing.
Now?
They were the ones no one cared about. I found my father in his office, staring at the empty walls. The once mighty man who had controlled everything now had nothing left. He turned when I walked in, his eyes tired. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I didn't answer immediately. Then I smiled. I am. He let out a bitter laugh. So, what now? You destroy us completely. I stared at him for a long moment. Once, I had desperately craved his approval.
Now?
He was just another man I had beaten. I had won. I expected Adam to fight back, to try and reclaim what he lost. Instead, he showed up at my office. His confidence?
Gone.
His arrogance? Shattered. He looked at me like a drowning man begging for a lifeline. Anna, please. His voice was hoarse. I don't have anything left. I leaned forward. Now you know how it feels. He swallowed hard. I was wrong. I should have never. I held up a hand. Stop. I studied him for a long moment. Then I gave him the same cold smile he once gave me. You're just a nobody now. And I walked away. With my father's company fully under my control, I did what no one expected. I merged it into my empire, erasing my father's legacy completely. His name? Wiped from the business world. My family, who once controlled everything, now had nothing. And I was untouchable. Adam tried to find another job. No one would hire him. My father tried to rebuild his connections. No one returned his calls. My mother? She went silent. They had made me a nobody. Now they were the nobodies. And I had built an empire.
All on my own.
Years ago, they laughed when I was thrown out with nothing. Now, they whispered my name in fear. I wasn't just another rich heiress anymore. I was the woman who came back stronger than ever. And no one, not my family, not anyone, could take that away from me again. One day, I stood outside the mansion I had once called home. It felt small now. I didn't need it anymore. Because I had built something greater. I had built myself. I turned away, my heart light. My past didn't define me anymore. I had won. And there was nothing left to say. I stood outside the estate, the place that once held all my childhood memories, my pain, my betrayal. It used to feel like a fortress, a kingdom that only my father ruled. Now, it was just a house, an empty, lifeless structure. A part of me thought I'd feel satisfaction seeing it this way, but all I felt was nothing, because I didn't need this house anymore. I had built my own empire, and I had erased theirs. I thought Adam would disappear after everything, but he didn't. One evening, as I left my office, I saw him waiting outside. He looked different. Gone was the arrogant, entitled man who had laughed as he stole my inheritance. In his place was someone broken. I know I don't deserve to ask for anything, he said, his voice quiet. But please, I don't have anywhere else to go. For a brief second, I remembered the brother I used to have. The one before the greed. The one before he saw me as a threat. And for that second, I almost felt pity. But then I remembered the way he smirked as I signed those papers. The way he told me, "You're just a nobody now." And I smiled. That's not my problem. Then I got in my car and left him there, just like he left me. Out of everyone in my family, my mother was the one who surprised me the most.
She didn't beg.
She didn't try to manipulate her way back into my life. She simply disappeared. I heard rumors. She had left the city, moved somewhere quiet, far away from the chaos. But I didn't care, because I was finally free from her. One day, I received a letter. It was from my father. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the best of me. Inside, his handwriting was shaky, not the confident, commanding script I remembered. "Anna, you were always smarter than I gave you credit for. And now you've proven that to the world. I have nothing left. No company. No wealth. No family. Maybe I deserve that. Maybe this was my punishment. But I hope, someday, you'll remember that I was still your father. And maybe, just maybe, you'll forgive me." I read the letter twice. Then I burned it. Forgiveness? That wasn't something he had ever given me. And I wasn't about to give it to him now. With my father's business erased and my name now a legend in the corporate world, I felt something I hadn't felt in years.
Peace.
I had fought. I had suffered. I had lost everything. But in the end, I had rebuilt myself. Not as a daughter. Not as an heiress. But as a self-made woman who had taken on giants and won. Months later, I found myself walking into a new boardroom. But this time, it was my company. I was no longer the girl begging for a place at the table. I owned the damn table. My executive stood when I entered. And as I took my seat at the head of the boardroom, I smiled. I had rewritten my own story. One evening, as I sat in my penthouse, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. "Hello." There was silence. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years. "Anna." I froze. It was my mother. My mother's voice was quiet, hesitant. I just wanted to hear your voice," she said.
I didn't say anything.
She sighed. I know I don't deserve to ask for anything. I know I was cruel. I cut her off. Manipulative. Heartless. Silence. Then, softly, she said, yes. I waited. I just wanted you to know, she continued, that I regret everything. And I'm sorry. The words should have meant something. But they didn't. Because it was too late. So I said nothing. And then I hung up. The world had tried to break me. My own family had tried to erase me. But in the end, I had risen. I had built something that no one could take from me. And for the first time in my life, I was truly free. I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, looking out at the city skyline. Everything I had now, I had earned it. And I wasn't afraid anymore. Because I knew one thing for sure. I had survived the worst. And no one would ever make me a nobody again.